Hello, everybody. How are you? Welcome to another episode of our podcast. Today, we have Josh with us, and he's going to talk with us about master social media in 20 minutes a day. So, it's all going to be about what are the things that you can do, read, or research in those 20 minutes every day, which can increase your digital abilities. Josh has a very interesting career line. He started off with international peace and conflict resolution as his bachelor's, and then he moved into working for non-profits, and where he understood that he was always a digital guy. So he has been doing digital from the age of, I think, MySpace, as per our conversation now. After that, he moved helping into the political candidates, and there is where he discovered that he wanted to do something in digital. In last, I think, the decade or so long career that he has in digital, he has worked from non-profit solopreneurs to Fortune 500 companies, and currently he has been teaching a lot of people how to use social media also in that way. He is a digital storyteller and strategist, and he is also founder of a digital marketing company. Welcome, Josh. Welcome.
Thank you very much for having me.
Thanks a lot for joining us today, and
Yeah,
we are hoping to have a great conversation. But I would like to know more about how that transformation happened. If you can tell us more about it.
sure. Yeah, actually, if we want to go back, so I actually have a BA in advertising. That was my undergrad. And then
Okay.
I worked for some nonprofits, lived overseas a bit, and then got a master's degree in international peace and conflict resolution. Moved to Madison, Wisconsin for a nonprofit job. Wound up volunteering after, like I did the job for a bit, and then I wound up volunteering with a political organization, doing just sort of, like making phone calls and knocking doors and, all the like very traditional things you do at the bottom of a political org.
Yeah.
But very quickly, somebody recognized that I had like a clever way with words, I think. And they asked me to take over the social media program for the Wisconsin state chapters of this like national organization.
True.
And I said, sure, sounds fun. Like I didn't know not to say no. Like I didn't know how much work it would be and whatnot. But yeah, so I took it over and it was just a natural fit. Like I just like had found my calling. And those same people wound up recommending me to a gubernatorial race across the country. And so I wound up within a year of kind of starting out at like the very bottom of a political world, being digital director and senior staff on a governor's race, which led to many, many more political campaigns in short order, because that's how politics works.
Yes.
And so, yeah, and essentially what happened with me was I was moving cross country for jobs, which I loved, but I moved 3 times in less than a year, and it's just, I was 10 years too old to be doing it for much longer. So I just sort of decided it wasn't sustainable. I was back where I had been living prior, Madison, Wisconsin, which my wife and I like sort of chose as our home, and we love it here. And I just decided to see, is what I've been doing for political candidates helpful for other folks, for companies, nonprofits, solopreneurs? And the short answer is yes. Like I very quickly found out that what I do is for political campaigns is very much in line with what almost anybody should be doing on social. If you're talking to people, it's very similar things. There's lots you can learn from political campaigns,
Yes.
good, bad, and otherwise. They are some of the most innovative people in the field, mostly because they're not trying to sell a product. Everything is building towards a single day, and you need to keep them excited for a year, for 10 years, indefinitely. Most companies don't think about social like that. They think about the sale and then the move on. That's a good way to maybe have a good quarter and a terrible way to grow a business, right? Like you can't just think about today, you have to think about forever. So finding ways to get people excited about your business on an ongoing basis is literally what political candidates do. And it's something that I've been able to help a lot of nonprofits, solopreneurs, and large companies figure out how to navigate that space to like go online and meet people where they are, instead of just trying to get them to buy the product and then never talking to them again.
Ah,
So there
that's
you go.
interesting. So
And
I think
I've got that political background. So if at any point I don't answer your question as you intended, let me know and I'll go back to it.
so I think you know how to give a good answer to a bad question in that way.
I'll always make sure I get my point in, right? No, just kidding.
Great. So
Okay.
I think with the political context for US market, what my understanding is the election of 2008, where President Obama came into picture, was a turning point for the US market, where a lot of people embrace that social media can change the way, or that can be a voice. And I think for India, the 2014 election, where our current Prime Minister Narendra Modi got elected, that was a turning point for the social media thing, because
Yep.
everybody around knew that this is something which can, if somebody can get elected on the basis of using social media nicely or in a better way, then everybody non-profit or every small businesses got an idea that yeah, everybody is online. If they are trying to pitch themselves online, then that means a lot of people are online, and that is what a general shift is what is seen there. So, what are the one thing that you have done for last quite some time? Because suppose you had a so not suppose, but you had a bachelor's in advertising, so that always helped you, I think, in the basics,
Yeah,
or
yeah.
did it
It's
not?
like I didn't go into advertising, but I can look back on my life and everything I've ever done is all about like sharing the good word. And that's like literally when I was like in high school, in college, if I was excited about a band that was coming to town, all of my friends knew about it. That was just me. Like, and I wasn't making money on it. Like, it wasn't like there was no ulterior motive. I was just like excited about the band. And I was like,
Yeah.
everybody needs to go see this band. They're amazing. And like that, I was doing that while I was in college. And since, it's like that's just always been part of me. Like, I find something I'm excited about, I'm going to let people know about it, which is part of why social is such a natural inclination for me, because I can get passionate. I have an endless supply of passion. You give me a product that I'm excited about, I'm going to tell people about it. You introduce me to a band I'm excited about, I'm going to tell people about it. Tell me an idea I'm excited about, I'm going to tell people about it. And so helping companies find the things that they can be excited about. And I think that's one of the biggest problems for like most companies. Social media is an afterthought. They're having a hard time finding a way to like work it into the day, which is the whole point of mastering your social in 20 minutes a day. But at the end of the day, so much of it feels like a burden because they're advertising to their audience instead of communicating with their audience. They're not building a relationship with their audience. And if you build a relationship with your audience, it's never tiresome. Like, you want to talk to them, you want to engage with them. And social media gives this opportunity to like build relationships with an ever-growing amount of people all over the world. Literally, you're in India and I'm in Madison, and it doesn't matter. And we connected through social media. Like,
Yeah.
obviously now we're talking through Zoom, which is a much higher level of technology, but like that's not how we met. We met through social. Because social media is a place where you can go and have conversations with an endless amount of people smarter than you, or people who might be interested in what you got to like provide to help their life and make it better. So that's how I approach
Okay, great.
it.
uh,
And
coming
yes, advertising bachelors.
Yeah, so coming to that point,
Yeah, exactly.
it always help you in gaining that knowledge. But if somebody suppose is from any other field, and as social media is so exciting, and sometimes a lot of small agencies which are maybe into web development or maybe into UI UX or maybe into any other kind of thing, they might not have the core knowledge of advertisement or advertising in that way. So how would you suggest them, so how can they up their game as at an individual level, because they cannot again hire an agency for doing their social media on an
Of
individual
course.
basis? So what kind of things should they keep in mind in the first place?
So the very first thing they should keep in mind is how can they add value to their potential clients' lives. I always ask. I do a lot of public speaking, and I always start my. I love to start my presentations with two questions. I'm in a room full of marketers, right? And my first question is, who here logs onto social media hoping to be pitched to? You want somebody to tell you to buy their product, to give money to their charity, to vote for their candidate. Who here? Raise your hand. And like sometimes some jokester in the back raise their hand, but mostly nobody raised their hand. And then
True.
I say, great. Now, how many of y'all go on social media and pitch? And if they're honest, they
Everybody.
all raise their hand because that's what it is. So there's a broken dichotomy between how we marketers use social media to market our product, whatever that means. It could be a service, it could be a charity, it doesn't matter. How we market ourselves versus how we go on social media as users, there's a broken dichotomy. And until we find a way to bridge that gap and solve that problem, we're never going to be happy with the results we see on social. Because if you're just going on social media 3, 4, 5 times a week and telling people to buy from you, you're going to fail. And failure does not mean that you won't succeed in business. It means you're never going to grow the community you want to grow. So the very first thing to do is ask yourself, what would actually be helpful to your audience? That could literally be comedy. Like maybe you're funny and you add value. Look at Wendy's on Twitter found a way
Yes.
to be funny for their audience. Like, does that sell hamburgers? Not in theory, but in reality, it absolutely does. Like, tons of studies have shown that they've gotten endless amounts of free marketing. Not free. I mean, they're paying
Yeah.
plenty to run that program, but like they're just on Twitter cracking jokes and people love it.
Love it.
So, maybe it's funny. Maybe it's education. Maybe it's, just talking about what's going on in the world right now in like a more casual way that helps people understand like, oh, you're a product that can help me and you get me. So the very first thing I would say is be helpful. The next thing I would say is Think about social media as a giant networking event. If you're, and this is hand in hand with the be helpful, but if you walked into a networking event and walked up to everybody you met and handed them your business card and told them what you were selling, you know how many business cards would wind up in the trash? All of them. Nobody's keeping a business card from somebody who spends the whole time trying to sell their product. But you walk into that same networking event with those same business cards and you have honest conversations where you don't try. I always tell people, don't write or speak to sound smart, write and speak to make your audience feel smart. You walk into that room prepared to educate people about the things like, oh, you're a car expert? Oh, did you know this? Oh, you've got a question? Let me answer it. I can't tell you how many times I've walked into networking events and somebody has sat and chatted me up asking me digital questions. I'm thrilled to answer it. And you know what? I never expect that to lead to clients, but sometimes it does. And that's great. Like, that's what it's all about. And social media is the exact same way. You're like building long-term relationships with lots and lots of people, knowing that most of them are not going to buy your product, or certainly some of them aren't, but some of them are. And, you know, essentially what I'm talking about here is content marketing. It's putting value into the world as a way to market the value you add to the world. So that's the most important thing I would tell people is stop trying to sell your product, start trying to build your brand on social.
Okay. So what I take is conversations are important rather than
conversations and value.
Value. Yeah.
So if you're just telling people why they should hire your, or, you know, use your software as a service, guess what? They're not following you on social. Like, nobody's going to do it because it's not helpful. Instead, show me how your software actually makes my life better,
Right.
and do it in a way that speaks directly to me. I worked on a political campaign once that we literally implemented something we called the grandparent rule, because we sent out an email that 3 or 4 of us had signed off on, and it was very obvious what we were saying to us. And then a bunch of people who were essentially our grandparents' age replied that they were confused. Was that their fault? It was not. It was our fault. We did not understand our audience, and we learned. And the grandparent rule can also be the grandkid rule, right?
Yeah.
Like, you want to go on TikTok, you better make sure that a 12-year-old thinks what you're doing is interesting, or don't go on TikTok, right? Like, if you
True.
can't speak to 12-year-olds, you shouldn't be on TikTok, and that's okay. But who is your audience? If you're selling tennis shoes for kids, like, you should be creating content that speaks to them. And if a 12-year-old hasn't seen some of your content and weighed in, it's probably not as good as you think it is, right? Like, give them a chance to tell you. And that goes for if you're trying to speak to women and you're a bunch of men, if you're trying to speak to people of color and you're a bunch of white people, like, whoever it is, like, understand. And frankly, if you're a bunch of white people, you shouldn't be speaking to people of color. You should be bringing in people of color to join you in that conversation.
True.
Goes without saying, hopefully. But, like, my point is, you have to speak the language your audience is speaking in the way that they're speaking it.
Great. Extending that question of speaking to the audience in that way, a lot of people in the initial days do not have that kind of brand building activity or the budget in the first place. Another thing is, it is also sometimes a lot of heavy thing to do for them, because they are already doing their 8 hours of work, and then they have to do that thing. So initially, a lot of times the personal branding aspect of a founder in an agency or something of that sort always works out to get them more leads. You will see a lot of founders on LinkedIn trying to build personal brands in that way. What would be something or a platform where you have seen for agencies specifically in that way? So what is the platform that you have seen is always useful for them? Because sometimes people say Pinterest is useful. Sometimes people say TikTok is useful in that way, because a lot of education content is also there on TikTok and a lot of users are there.
Sure.
So what should be the priority, and how should people judge the platform? Because not somebody is not going to be there on YouTube, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, and all the
not in 20 minutes a day. They're not.
Yeah. So what should be
definitely
the judgment of what should he or she do in that 20 minutes, and how should he take forward with which platform to choose?
Sure. I mean, the first question I would ask, bar none, is where's your audience? If your audience is on LinkedIn, that's where you should be. If your audience is on Twitter or Pinterest or TikTok, that's where you should be. And that's not always an easy question to answer. Like, just looking at demographic breakdowns is not the same. So, you know, literally, if you're selling a product or a service or something and you don't know anybody who might want to buy it, you've got a bigger issue at play, right? Like, the first thing you need to do is understand your market. The next thing you do is need to have conversations. Literally, just pick up the phone. Hey, which channels do you spend time on? Like, get a sense of the people that matter to you, where they are. The next most important thing about a channel is that you're comfortable with it, because I'm talking about a founder here that, like, is maybe going to put in a little bit of time a week, 20 minutes a day.
Yeah.
if somebody could tell you, oh, you've got to be on LinkedIn. But you know what? If you hate LinkedIn, it's not really going to be valuable to you, because every time you log on, you're just going to be annoyed. You're going to walk away. But it turns out you love Twitter. Well, guess what? Twitter has plenty of potential for your audience, probably. I mean, no, it depends on your audience. But like, so the two things I would say is, where your audience and where do you like spending time? The next thing I would say is, do not be on more platforms than you have the bandwidth to manage. It is not better to be bad at a bunch of channels than it is to be good at one channel. So I would always recommend you start small, start with something you can actually handle, because you're better off not having an Instagram account than having an Instagram account that hasn't posted in 6 months, right? Like that just makes you look small. Not being on Instagram, like, okay, people might be like, oh, that's annoying. Why aren't you here? But they won't judge you. But if you're there and you're not using it, they're going to judge you because you look small, right? Like, oh,
Yeah.
they've got an Instagram account, they can't manage it. So just don't have it. And that's fine. Like, you know, maybe grab the page and lock it down, just unpublish it so that nobody else grabs your name handle. But like, don't be on Instagram just because people said you should. Be on Instagram because you have time to manage it, because you have a story to tell, like your audience is there, and because you're comfortable using it. And again, just because you're not comfortable using it today doesn't mean you shouldn't use it. You should spend time learning how to use these channels. And, you know, again, we could spend a whole hour right now talking about like the different tools of which channel, but this is sort of
Yes.
the easy version of like, where are you already comfortable is a good starting place. And if you're not sure where you're comfortable, okay, fine. Like I always tell political candidates, and this is true for nonprofits and businesses, you go on Facebook to talk to the people. You go on Twitter to talk to the press. LinkedIn is a great place to talk to the professional people, although there is a ton of overlap these days between
True.
all the channels. They're all quickly, I mean, I would say slowly, but it's not slow anymore. They're all quickly turning into each other as quickly as they all seem to be able to do it. Instagram is a great place for like engaging media. Instagram is probably the most engaged platform from a brand perspective. It's also the hardest platform, I would argue, because everything is media first. You
Yes.
cannot go and share a news story. It's not possible on it. I mean, it's possible, but very hard. Whereas Twitter, you can just drop that link with some comment and there you go. So I think it's fair to say Instagram for small businesses is the hardest, because you have to have photos and videos to accompany every post. Whereas Twitter and Facebook, not that there's other things you can do, but there's also a lot of potential value there. But again, it really depends on your audience.
Okay. Uh, Coming to the part of content, once we say it will take only 20 minutes, so which kind of tools should we use, or what kind of platform should we use in a way to create those content pieces? What would be your suggestion on that?
So, okay. So obviously this conversation, Master Your Social in 20 minutes a day, Sahil chose it because it's a topic that I present on regularly.
Yes.
And I essentially break down, here's the thing. 20 minutes a day is legit. I legitimately believe that a program can have a decent, not award-winning, you're not going to win any Webbies, but it can have a decent program that does the work it needs to do in 20 minutes a day. And that's only 5 days a week. Take your weekends off. Within reason. I mean, sometimes there's emergencies, but 5 days a week, 20 minutes a day. But the only way it works is if you use the power of all the things you're doing throughout the day to then be prepared and like ready for those 20 minutes. So what I mean by that is you need to have a system. If you don't have a system, 20 minutes a day is impossible. If you have a good system, 20 minutes a day is absolutely possible. And when I say system, what I mean is set up channels and ways that your content comes to you, and set up channels in ways that you can track the content that interests you, so that when you're ready to do your scheduling or your posting, it's there waiting for you. So for example, your friend sends you an article from the New York Times and it's dead on, you know your audience is going to love it. Well, you should definitely share it, but your 20 minutes a day is tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. and it's 3 p.m. and nope, not time for social. You got that on your calendar. So, okay, fine. So you put it away. If you tell yourself, I'll find it again tomorrow, that's 10 of your 20 minutes. It ain't going to happen. You need to then take that URL, drop it right into someplace. That someplace could be literally a notepad on your phone. It could be a email chain, like for those who don't know, Gmail. If you send yourself an email with the same subject line, it will create a chain. So you can literally have a unique chain that just keeps adding to it. So they're all there waiting for you. You could use a Google Drive. You could use Evernote. You could use a browser extension. They're literally Facebook saved. Could be your way to do it. It doesn't matter what your system is, and I can't tell you what it should be. It has to work for you. I'll tell you what my system is: Notes. I love my notepad. It syncs seamlessly between my iPhone and my computer. I'm on it all the time. I run my business through Notepad. Most people probably think that's silly. For me, it just works. I love it. So then that's the first part. The second part is, so you've captured the things, and that could be anything from an article that was helpful to a video you read to a picture to like an anecdote somebody told you. Write yourself a note so you remember you've got that content stored someplace waiting for you. The second part is, how do you find more content? And that content, if you're out there searching the internet for content, you should be letting the internet do it for you. And there's so many ways to do it. I'm going to share a couple with you. So first of all, if you're not already using Feedly or a similar RSS feeder, you should be. I'm not an affiliate of Feedly. I don't get paid if you sign up. I just like it. But Feedly is an RSS feeder. You probably know what that is, but for your audience who might not, really simple syndication. Essentially, you can go on Feedly or a similar free RSS feeder and tell it to track as many different blogs as you want. And blog can be anything from Julia's down the street cookbook to the New York Times, like anything. Anybody who's putting content on the internet, Feedly can pull that RSS feed, and you can actually batch it into different categories. So literally anytime I'm like, I haven't shared a post on Twitter today, what should I share? I can head over to my Feedly and look just at email marketing, just at social media marketing, just at Facebook advertising marketing, just at nonprofit news, anything I want. I've got it broken down so the content is just waiting for me. Take advantage of a program like Feedly because you can find great topics in a matter of 90 seconds that would have taken you 90 minutes to do if you were just searching around. So Feedly, definitely something you should use. I highly recommend you get yourself onto email lists. That can be of your competitors, but use a different email address. Don't use your company email, but they're probably on your list. You should probably be on theirs, know what they're saying. But also influencers in the market. You know who else is a really good email list to join? Your clients. See what your clients are talking about to their people. I'm talking about a public email list. I'm not saying hacking your way in. Like if they have a public email list, sign up. Like check out what they're up to. It's a great way to keep tabs on them. They win an award. You want to know that. So you can drop them a note and congratulate them. Let them tell you they won that award. And you can literally have a separate email address or even a filter within G Suite or Outlook set up so that it's just there waiting for you. A couple other things I highly recommend. Set up Google Alerts. I hope this goes without saying, but set up Google Alerts for yourself, right? Like if somebody mentions your company online, you want to know, but also set up Google Alerts for key terms of the industry. So they're not necessarily just about you, but also like, you sell shoes and you want to know that like rubber prices went up or down, whatever, like you want to keep tabs on like big key terms. Google Alerts can be a great way to do that. And you can have those sent to you just once a day or even just once a week, like in digest form. So if it's a key term that's getting used a lot, you might not want those as they come, but you can just drop those into a daily or weekly. Whereas ones that have your name in it, you probably want those as quickly as possible. Two others that I'll mention, Facebook pages to watch. It is a secret weapon that Facebook gives us that nobody uses. If you go to your Facebook analytics, it's called Insights, and you go down to the bottom of the overview page, you can track public Facebook pages without them knowing it. And it's all public data, but Facebook organizes the data in a way that is extremely beneficial. It will literally tell you what those pages are doing well on social. And what I always tell folks is don't steal that, be inspired by it. If every one of your competitors is sharing this new study that the New York Times shared, you should probably share that new study too, because if it speaks to their audience, it speaks to yours. And I just want one more. I know I've given you this might have been a bigger answer than you were expecting. I don't know, but I clearly love this stuff. If it's not clear, I can talk about it forever. So the other big one is Twitter lists. Even if your brand is not on Twitter, I highly recommend set up a burner account and set up Twitter lists. Twitter lists are one of the most powerful way there is, in my opinion, to listen to the people that are talking about the news of the day, namely journalists, influencers, also potentially your audience, like your customers. There's two kinds of Twitter lists, public and private. A public list, they'll get a notification if you add them to it. Anybody can subscribe to it. Anybody can see that you've created it. So if you're creating a competitor list, you probably don't want to create it publicly. You probably want to create it privately. And for your audience, you might want to create that one privately too. If you don't want if you're worried about your competitors finding your audience, your customers, create it privately. But like influencers, people you respect in the field, that stuff could be public. They want to see that you respect them in the field. It's actually a nice way to sort of build a bridge. Once you've created those Twitter lists, you can use a free tool called TweetDeck, where you can literally just have a stream of as many different Twitter lists as you want. so that literally once a day in your 20 minutes, you can hop into TweetDeck and just scroll back to where you left off and see everything that's happened since the last day. I covered a couple of those topics, including Twitter lists, Google Alerts, and Facebook pages to watch in my podcast, which is called Step Up Your Social. You can listen. All the episodes are short, around 10 minutes or less, and provide quick actionable tips to take your digital marketing to the next level. You can listen to all episodes for free at stepupursocial.com or wherever you stream podcasts. So if you want like more info on how to set up and how to use Twitter lists or Facebook pages to watch, head over to stepupursocial.com and listen to them today.
Great. I had just muted myself because
I was just talking. So
that answer could have gone for more than 10 minutes more. And
easily, I could go for all day.
Yeah, literally. I would have heard you with the same attention which I had at the first. Because this is what a lot of people, I think, don't get or understand sometimes, because there's a lot of free content online which you can share.
Yep.
And you can benefit out of it. Maybe I speak a lot on those segments, but I also don't share a lot. On Twitter, I might be active because it is just very simple to retweet people. And that is a simple path. But on LinkedIn, I post twice or thrice a month. And then Instagram, I'm active in that way. But I think this is what people need to understand. You need to first embrace the platform which is there. You need to find out which platform you are comfortable with as an individual or as a brand, and then start focusing on those platforms. Most of the people do is they schedule the same post on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and LinkedIn. The same thing goes out everywhere. And then you do not have a conversation anywhere. That is the whole thing which is going out.
So I'll be honest, I'm pro cross posting. I'm anti auto posting. So I personally think it's okay if you're going to be on more than one platform, to post the same piece of content at the same time to numerous places. There are a lot of people in my field that say not to. I think those people are wrong for one very simple reason. You don't have time to create completely different strategies per se. I mean, but you have to. The most important thing and why you can't auto post is that what you need to do is make sure that every piece of content is perfectly tailored for the platform. If your tweet ends in a ... and a Facebook link, or your Instagram post that you share your Instagram picture on Twitter, but it's a link to an Instagram, I'm going to unfollow before I'm going to click through. Like, I'm just not going to do it. Speak to me on the platform I am. Don't expect me to follow you. The biggest danger with cross posting, especially when you're using a third-party tool, is that it's very easy to set it and forget it. So you put your content out into the world, and then you come back a couple days later and you do it again, right? But what about the people who are engaging with you? If you're not going into the platforms and engaging with them, you literally shouldn't be on the platform. I would rather a brand not be on Facebook than not reply to an important question that somebody asked on Facebook. When I go audit accounts and people, so I always say, like, pre-pandemic, I don't know how it's going where you're at. We're not going out right now, but pre-pandemic, somebody asks a restaurant, hey, do you have gluten-free crust? They want an answer. They could have picked up the phone, but instead they chose to respond to your Facebook post. By not responding, you are telling them, I don't care if you come to my restaurant or not. If I couldn't find you on Facebook, I might like roll my eyes, but I'm not going to judge you for not replying to me. But if you're on Facebook and I ask you a question, you think I'm going to then wait and come back and call you again and like try again? No, I'm going to go find somebody else that has a gluten-free crust. I'm not gluten-free, but you can see how like it fits that way. You know, like you have to, not every question deserves an answer. Like there are trolls out there and there are people you need to navigate, but there are plenty of people that are asking legitimate questions that are trying to weigh in on the brand in a way that you absolutely would love at a networking event. You would love people to be walking up and asking you questions about your product and talking to you. But it's so easy to forget that social media is a giant networking event. So you think you're out there to broadcast instead of to communicate. So you're just putting content out in a one directional way. And then you're like, why aren't we getting more customers? Well, frankly, you don't deserve them. Like you're not doing anything. Like your product could be great, but if you're on social thinking it's going to lead to customers, but you're not adding value to those customers' lives, good luck. You better have a magic product that sells itself. Like that's just the short answer. Like, you know, people are not going on social to be sold to. They're going on social to talk to their friends and see funny TikTok videos and laugh about goofy stuff on Twitter. Find a way to add value to their life or get out of their way. Short answer. I'll also add, just since why not? Like I'm talking, right? It's a big topic. So I've broken down the 4 things you need to do in your 20 minutes a day into I've broken it down into 4 tasks. So
Okay.
on a weekly basis, you have 4 tasks that are involved in telling your story. The acronym for it is SELL. But that's not what you should be doing. You should be sharing, engaging, listening, and learning. Share, engage, listen, learn, SELL. So sharing, that means posting content, like speaking, putting content out into the world. Engaging, talking to the people that are talking to you, answering questions, thanking people for their positive reviews, responding to their negative reviews if they seem legitimate, and asking them why, trying to make it right. Listening is literally going out into the world and finding that content that makes you smarter, setting up the Feedly, setting up the Twitter list. And learning is going into your analytics and making sure that you're paying attention to what's working and what's not. If you're putting content out into the world on a social platform that has an analytic backend, which Facebook does, Instagram does, Twitter does, LinkedIn sort of does, like
Yeah.
it's okay. But like if it has an analytic background and you're not going and looking at it, you're just throwing things at the wall and hoping for the best. You have no idea what's actually working. It's just gut reactions. Your analytics are telling you what your audience cares about. So you need to share, speak, engage, listen, go out there and be the expert for your audience and learn, follow your analytics. And you need to do all 4 of those things every week. The way I break it up is you could say 7 minutes a day, I'm going to listen, 5 share, 3 engage, 5 learn. Or you could break it up differently and say twice a week, I'll share and engage. Twice a week, I'll learn. 10 minutes a day, I'll listen, like to be the expert. So it's really up to you how you want to approach it, like what's best for you. But literally, companies that are struggling to get social done, I would recommend putting on your calendar every day 20 uninterrupted minutes and finding a system that works for you. Again, that system has to be outside of it as well. You have to have that content coming to you. You have to be tracking the content you're finding. The other big thing that I'll add to it is a content calendar. I'm not saying you need to pre-write your content before you post it. I mean, with more than a day or two, or even that morning. But have a content calendar so you know, oh, there's a holiday coming up. We should make a plan for that. Oh, it's going to be this big sale. You don't want to wake up the day before your biggest sale of the year and realize you haven't thought about what to do. Like you should have been building towards that for 3 months or at least 3 weeks, not 3 hours, right? So that's a content calendar can be a really good way to make sure that like big important things don't sneak up on you and that you're not talking about one thing while everybody else is talking about something else. In America, like Christmas Day, you post
Yeah.
a thing that's unrelated to Christmas, like you're going to look kind of silly, right? Like, do you not know where we are? I'm sure I'm sure you've got your own, I'm sure
Festival.
India has a bunch of different versions of
Yes,
Christmas,
yes,
like
yes.
the days you should be posting about what people are talking about, right? So,
Yeah. So I got a lot of value from that. You have been dropping value bombs on each of my question.
yeah, I just got all these things to share. So I'll just drop them out there as we go.
Yeah. Uh, so moving ahead, in the analytics part that you said, a lot of individuals, a lot of marketers themselves do not come from the analytics background. Not a lot of them are from accounting, or not a lot of them are from engineering background in such ways. There are a lot of people who shifted. So they did their engineering, that then they did their MBA
Sure.
or something in advertisement in that way. So then they were there. So how can somebody get know-how about analytics, or maybe have some inclination? Because a lot of people we know hate numbers,
Sure.
and they hate seeing graphs, they hate seeing charts and things like that. But is it very important for marketers to be analytical in any way? Can you share some thoughts
So
on that?
so I am not particularly I let me put it this way. I'm not an analytics expert. Like that's not where I live. I live in the storytelling side of things, but I've come to learn very quickly that in this business, analytics help you tell better stories, right? So I always say there's no answers in your analytics. There's lots of questions. You'll look at a post and it will have done so well. It's not going to tell you why it did well. It's going to tell you that it did well. And then it's up to you to figure out why did this do well. And if you can find a pattern to like, whoa, every time we include the office cat in the post, it blows up. Well, 2 questions. 1, I think we know why. What are you going to do about it? 2, is that the right audience? Like, so maybe it's like reaching the wrong audience. And then you have to decide, is this a good thing or a bad thing? But assuming it's a good thing, why wouldn't you work your cat into every post if that helps your content do better? You
Yeah.
don't need to be an analytic expert. There's no, we're not talking about pivot tables in Excel here. If you go to your Facebook brand page and you go to Insights, it used to be on the top bar, and now it's on
Yes.
the left bar. They give you a tremendous amount of data for free. It's just sitting there waiting for you. And it is broken down in a way that you do not have to be an analytics expert to understand it. You export it, they'll export the data for you. Then it's a little different. Then it's like you might need an MBA to look through it, depending on it. It's actually mind blowing how much Facebook
Tracks.
how much data they collect, which is the whole point, I guess. But just going through your insights panel, like they make it easy for non-marketers, non-data people to easily understand, like, oh, these posted well, these posted poorly. You can literally see where your audience lives by city and country and what language they speak, what gender and demographic, like their gender and their age breakdown. Not only can you see that, you could see your Facebook fans, their age, gender, city, country, and language, and the people you're reaching and the people you're engaging separately. So it's like, oh, my page is 75% men, which seems good because I'm selling men's watches. But then when I go and look at who's actually engaging with my content, it's 80% women. Well, I don't know what that tells me. That's an answer, not a question, right? The question is, why is that happening? So either I've got bad content, I'm speaking to the wrong audience, or maybe what it tells me is I should be selling women's watches. I don't know. Like, then it's a question of figuring out how to approach this. Is it that I'm speaking to the wrong audience, or am I selling the wrong product altogether? Maybe that was a better product.
Yeah, maybe there can be a third point.
Exactly.
They are buying it for their boyfriends or husbands.
Right. And if that's the case, when's the last time you did a post specifically speaking to women about men's watches? That's a great example where, is it the right content? If women are engaging with your content more than men when you're selling a men's product, either you're doing something wrong or you're doing something very right and you just haven't figured it out yet. And you can literally rethink your entire strategy. The holidays are coming up. Stop selling watches to the men and start selling watches to the husbands and the boyfriends. Tailor it to the women to buy for their husbands. If that's speaking to your audience. So I think that's a great way to again, you don't need an MBA to look at the data and say, oh, okay, women really like this content, and I wouldn't think that would be the case. Or I thought I was speaking to 30-year-olds. Turns out I'm speaking to 60-year-olds. So are you speaking the wrong language? Are you on the wrong platform? Or should you be speaking to 60-year-olds? There's no wrong answer per se. I mean, it depends on your business KPIs and, your business. We don't. But what are you going to do about if you don't know what's happening? You're just wasting your time, right? You're spinning your wheels, talking to the wrong audience, or using content that doesn't speak to people. You need to find a way to speak to the audience, to the audience you want on the platforms you choose to be on.
Great.
And I'll just share analytics.twitter.com. We'll take you to their Twitter platform, analytic platform. It's not nearly as comprehensive as Facebook because Twitter doesn't collect nearly as much data, but it's definitely worth looking at. Instagram, you have to be set up as a business or a creator page to get analytics. And then it's in the little right hamburger menu, the 3 lines in the top right of your profile. You can click analytics. LinkedIn business pages have it, but it's just okay. It's gotten better. Personal accounts only do it by post. So there's no way to see comprehensive. And what LinkedIn shows you is it's not helpful, but it's not helpful. Yeah. It tells you how many people reached and things like that, but it's not going to dig in the way Facebook will. So definitely something to pay attention to, your analytics.
So I think it was an awesome session.
Cool.
We are coming towards the end now, and where I have 2 questions for you.
Sure.
One is, how do you keep learning new things? So what is that one thing which keeps you pushing? Or what are the places that you learn new things on? And second is, how do you keep yourself motivated to do these things? Because every now and then you will see the platform is changing. So most of the times people learn few things in their colleges and they implement those things lifelong. And that is what they get money for. But in social media, that does not work out. You learn something
not work.
And you enter 2017 and that does not work out. You learn SEO in 2016, 2017, it is everything is different. In 2016, live videos working maybe. Now TikTok and Reels and those kind of things are working.
Yeah.
So what are the answers for both the questions?
So the first one, it was, how do I find it? How do I stay up to date?
Yes.
Okay. So I'm a news junkie, and my news is social media is a huge part of my news consumption these days. I practice what I preach. I'm on a bunch of email news lists that like keep me up to date on what's going on in digital marketing. Yeah. Facebook groups have become by far my most valuable networking resource. They're not necessarily a great place. I have gotten clients out of Facebook groups, and I've helped clients set up Facebook groups to add great value to their business. But honestly, I'm in Facebook groups simply, the main reason I'm in Facebook groups these days is networking purposes. I go in there to learn and to teach, but mostly to learn. I'm learning way more than anything else. It's a great place. If you can find some Facebook groups that are niche to your audience, like to your brand, get in there as yourself just to learn. And guess what? If it doesn't exist, start one. The most valuable Facebook group in my arsenal is a group I started that fit a very small niche of an overlapping Venn diagram. People on one side, people on both sides, people in the middle. I couldn't find a Facebook group where those people were meeting. I started it, and it's the most valuable Facebook group I'm in. I won't share the name here just because it's a very niche group, and 99% of people are not the right fit for it. My point is more, I tried to join the group. It didn't exist, so I started. So email lists, Facebook groups, Twitter. I am an avid Twitter user, and I get tons of news on Twitter. And then honestly, the other big place I get my news is just, again, it helps to want to use the platforms. I'm in the platforms all the time. If I find, do you know what Instagram guides are? It's okay if you don't, because they just came out and there's been very little fanfare about it. But I was literally poking around in the new Instagram, UX, like that they just rolled out a couple weeks ago. And I saw this thing called guides, and I was like, what the heck's an Instagram guide? Because it didn't exist. A month ago, there was no such thing. Yeah. And now it's this really cool tool. And yes, maybe I eventually would have come across somebody talking about it out there in the world, but I saw it first, which is not a brag. It's just like, I saw it because if I see a button on a social channel and I don't know what it does, you better believe I'm going to push it. Like, you're not going to break your channel. Like, don't publish anything you don't mean to publish. But like, if you see something interesting, dig in. And I think that's true for your world too. Like, I mean, you being anybody, software as a service. Like, if you're not spending time on the kind of websites that should be using your software and seeing what they're doing to innovate, I guarantee you somebody's doing it better and a whole lot of people are doing it worse. Learn from the ones who are doing it better and learn from the ones who are doing it worse. Like, figure out where those pain points are and then help people solve them. So I highly recommend you do that. And then obviously for your audience, if you want to skip some of these steps, you can follow me on social because I share the cool stuff that I find all the time, and I don't do any pitching pretty much ever. I might occasionally promote that my light just went off. Sorry. I might occasionally, my lamp just burned out or something. Yeah. I might occasionally pitch that I'm going to be public speaking or on a podcast or something, but pretty much all my value is just trying to add value because I believe in it. So folks can follow me at Reverbal Communications on social. I'm also at JLemonsK on Instagram, but most importantly, they can find all my social channels through my website, joshclemens.com. That's Josh K. Lemons, like the fruit.com. And then also check out my podcast, stepupyoursocial.com. Sorry about that light. Stepupyoursocial.com will get you right to my podcast, where I've spelled out a lot of these concepts in 10 minutes or less for you to jump into on your own pace. What was the second question?
Second question was, what keeps you motivated to learn new things?
So I'm passionate that I'm lucky that I chose a field that keeps changing. Like if I just said like, what I did 3 years ago, did today, I'd be out of business. Like I wouldn't be valuable to my client. So constant change is helpful. Honestly, I get to work with clients that I'm inspired by all the time. Doesn't matter if they're selling, I've worked with clients that are selling like things on Etsy all the way up to Fortune 500 companies. And at the end of the day, like getting to work with people who are passionate about what they do keeps me inspired. And what I would say, that might not be as applicable as it seems to your audience, but I would argue it is. If you sell software as a service, your audience is your users. Have conversations with them as often as possible. Do not just it doesn't matter how beautiful your design is. It doesn't matter how wonderful your code is. If it's not solving the pain points for your audience, it's a fail. Like, and you're not going to, again, you might like get buzz, you might get a newspaper article, but you're not going to have a long-term relationship with your clients if you're not constantly changing to fit them. So literally every chance you get, have a Zoom coffee date or a real coffee date when, if you live in a part of the world where that's okay. But literally, as often as you can, talk to the people in your world whose problems you're solving. It will make your products better. And more importantly, it will keep you passionate about what you're doing because it's so easy. Like you sit and look at a screen full of zeros and ones all day. that passion is not sticking around. You get on the phone and realize that those zeros and ones are literally helping people hire new people, grow their businesses, solve problems. It's like a mind-blowing thing. And you got to get yourself out of the mindset of just like, the tech is not the answer. The tech is the tech is the way you get to the answer, right? Like, so help you. And that's true of any business. Like, you don't sell tennis shoes because people like tennis shoes. You sell tennis shoes because people want to go for a run, right? Like, find the thing that you do that adds value to people's lives. Doesn't matter how big or how small. There's a famous quote in advertising. Last year, people bought 250,000 drill bits, and not a single person wanted a drill bit. They all wanted a hole, right? Like, what you're selling a drill bit, but that's not what you're selling. And until you understand that's not what you're selling, you're gonna have a hard time. And I say that in the context of like, how do I stay motivated? Because I'm constantly talking to people. Every day I hear a new problem about social media that I get to help somebody solve, that I know is helping grow their businesses. So what are the things, especially for a B2B audience, like what are the things you're doing that are actually making the businesses you serve better? If that doesn't add passion to your life, it's time to find a new profession. Like, like if you're not enjoying solving the problems of your audience, then like, maybe it's time to go to law school or whatever. Right.
Great. I could have taken this session, a 2-hour session, but due to the time constraint, won't be able to continue that part.
I talk fast.
Yeah, but I think there are a lot of value bombs which you dropped today. And thanks a lot, Josh, again, for coming on the podcast and agreeing to do that. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much for having me. And again, to your audience, I'm very active and engaged, as you can imagine, on social. So, if you want to check in, you can find me on all the social platforms. Head to my website for links. And yeah, I'd love to keep the conversation going, both with you and with your audience. So thank you so much.
Thanks a lot. Thank you for joining.